Although I did make a video recently talking about how Star Trek Discovery produced one reasonably decent episode in, if memory serves, predictably, that quality could not be sustained for long. Star Trek Discovery has been playing fast and loose with Star Trek continuity for the past 2 seasons. Sure, the other Trek series also violated canon in minor ways here and there. We have to accept that it's extremely difficult to maintain continuity perfectly across decades of a complex and multifaceted franchise like Star Trek. However, never has a series violated canon so often in such a short period of time as Discovery. From the public portrayal of Section 31, the introduction of ridiculous technologies like a space fungus-powered spore drive, the character of Michael Burnham, the visual direction and design aesthetics of the show, including holographic technology that was never before seen in the 23rd century, and first contact with Mirror Universe characters before the official first contact in the original series episode, Mirror Mirror. Yes, the Mirror Universe did appear in an Enterprise two-parter based 100 years prior, but those episodes took place entirely in the Mirror Universe with no crossover of regular universe characters. Now it seems that Discovery is going to possibly begin to retcon an origin story for the Borg Collective. In the Season 2 episode Perpetual Infinity, the Section 31 character of Leyland has apparently been taken over by the artificial intelligence Control, and he was injected with nanotechnology, and his skin developed those very Borg-like greyish veins that we've seen before on Borg drones. Control communicates with Leyland through a holographic projection, taking the form of various characters from the show. At one point, a holographic version of himself says, "Struggle is pointless," possibly a precursor to the famous Borg phrase, "Resistance is futile." There's many reasons why this is likely going to be a major breach of canon. We know that the Borg have existed for hundreds of years, thousands most likely. In the Voyager episode Dragon's Teeth, 7 of 9 talks with an alien that had been in suspended animation for 900 years. The aliens are called the Vaadwaur. The alien mentions that he has encountered an early version of the Borg before he'd been in suspended animation. He actually uses the words the Borg, so the Borg have been around for at least the better part of 1,000 years by the time of the 24th century. And I also recall that in the episode Q Who, which was the first official meeting with the Borg, Guinan said, "They're made up of organic and artificial life, which has been developing for thousands of centuries." So I'm not sure what to believe here, but the Borg have been around for a very, very long time. And by and large, they were always depicted in Trek canon as being a product of the Delta Quadrant. Though the exact specific details of their origin are still a mystery to this day, we know that they didn't evolve recently. The official first contact between the Federation and the Borg was in the Next Generation episode Q Who, where Q sent the Enterprise D to the Delta Quadrant. It's true that other people from the Alpha Quadrant had encountered the Borg prior to this date, including young Annika Hansen, later 7 of 9, and her parents, prior to being assimilated, obviously. And it's true that the Borg were introduced in the 22nd century in the Enterprise episode Regeneration, but canon was technically not violated since that encounter was as a result of time travel from the film Star Trek First Contact, and also the Enterprise NX-01 crew never found out the Borg's actual name. Regeneration actually worked quite well as a clever and believable unofficial first contact that didn't undermine the events of Q Who. Those were Borg drones frozen in the ice in Antarctica from the debris of the sphere that the Enterprise E had shot down in the film First Contact. In the episode, the Borg attempted to contact the 22nd century Borg in the Delta Quadrant. Similarly, in Star Trek First Contact, the Borg trapped in the 21st century tried to use the Enterprise E's deflector dish to contact the Borg in the Delta Quadrant. So we have plenty of evidence that the Borg existed well prior to the 23rd century. Voyager would have us believe that an early version of the Borg existed over 900 years ago. Guinan said they've existed for thousands of centuries. Regardless of who you believe, the Borg were not created in the 23rd century. So this Discovery plot, with Control possibly becoming the Borg, may violate continuity in 2 ways. Firstly, as the Borg existed in the Delta Quadrant for thousands of years prior, this origin story is obviously a massive inaccuracy. The second potential violation really depends on how the writers play this out. If a new cybernetic species evolves on the show, with control taking over other life forms and essentially assimilating them, and then this new species is referred to by the characters as the Borg, then canon will be blown away completely, as it means that Q-Who is no longer the official first contact between the Federation and the Borg. If they choose not to officially use the name the Borg, and it's merely inferred to the audience that this new species is the Borg, then the only canonical breach will be their origin. But that's still potentially a massive violation all by itself, possibly the biggest ever. And if any show is going to heavily breach Star Trek continuity, it's going to be Star Trek Discovery, right? Can we just stop pretending that this series is actually Star Trek at this point? It's a poor facsimile. Of course, it's all still possible that Control turns out to not be the Borg, but would you really put it past them at this point? I mean, just look at what they did to the character of Spock. Now, one of the justifications they might use for this canonical breach is the existence of this sphere life form, and that Control is determined to obtain its data on artificial intelligence. Apparently, this sphere has existed for hundreds of thousands of years and has amassed information on countless species. If some kind of merger happens between Control and the sphere, is this the way that Discovery intends to introduce the Borg? The fact that the sphere is ancient might be one way of technically sidestepping the question of how old the Borg are. But this is very confusing and still doesn't resolve the central problem of their origin. It also doesn't explain how Section 31 has an AI that's capable of assimilating people with nanotechnology in a manner very similar to how the Borg do it. Is more time travel involved here? Well, if that's the case, it's a very cheap get-out-of-jail tactic in my view. Constant time travel retconning is just lazy. We know a cybernetic species called the Borg existed for thousands of years before the events of Discovery, and we know the Federation didn't officially encounter them until the 24th century. Trying to contrive that this ancient sphere and Section 31's AI control combined somehow produce the Borg that we know is not going to cut it. The sphere sounds more like V'ger, to be honest, but V'ger only officially emerged after it was encountered by an advanced machine intelligence after its launch in the 20th century. So, as I say, the only other justification I can think of is some kind of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey explanation. The Red Angel, who anticlimactically turned out to be Michael Burnham's mother, Lord, went back in time and tried to stop Control from getting near the sphere because Control had evolved and eradicated all life in the galaxy in the future. Wow, what a plot. So original. Anyway, if there's some contrived time travel explanation used here to retcon the creation of the Borg, then again, it will be altering pre-existing canon in some respect. Of course, I could be way off here, and all of this may be either a red herring or something else entirely. Either way, I have little faith that the people in charge of Discovery will actually come through with anything original or interesting in the payoff of this season's story arc. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.